What did I get you to read, Liam?
You got me to read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, despite knowing my feelings towards Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yes, your feelings that are founded on reading the first part of Sandman.
Yep, and now
Nothing else.
are further enforced by reading Neverwhere.
What was your opinion of Neverwhere, Liam?
It was alright, but it was just, it's just...
What is it you don't like about Neil Gaiman?
I don't know.
Like, what? No, there must be something about the reading of it that you were like, I'm not enjoying this.
I think it's just... I get the impression that Neil Gaiman thinks he has the best bloody imagination around and that no one else could possibly imagine anything like this. And, look at this, isn't it smart? And it's so fantastical, but there's an element of intelligence to it. And there's not. It's just...
See, at least I learnt something when I read your one, whereas you appeared not to have learnt that you are far too judgmental of people instead of the work. You are letting that jade you.
No,
completely.
Right, I was well up for this being the one that would change my opinion of Neil Gaiman. I was so up for it. I didn't. The thing is, right, also, I need to point out, I can't entirely blame Neil Gaiman for this, because he obviously wrote the source novel it was based on.
Yeah.
But the comic was written by Mike Carey. So he had to have adapted Neil Gaiman's novel. So we're not necessarily reading a Neil Gaiman piece of work here. We're reading Mike Carey's interpretation of Neil Gaiman's work.
Yeah.
So, hey, maybe my issues lie with Mike Carey.
Again,
maybe
you're blaming it on the person.
Maybe they lie with Neil Gaiman.
What was it about the novel,
Neverwhere,
graphic novel,
Neverwhere,
that you didn't like?
I didn't like pretty much most of the story.
I just don't understand why.
So let me explain the story to those listeners that maybe didn't get the chance to read it, despite us giving them like 3 or 4 weeks' notice.
Yeah, way too much notice.
The slackers out there.
Yeah.
Neverwhere sees our main character, Richard.
Yep, sure. I can't remember.
Richard Mayhew. He's an ordinary guy living in London. He's a bit like you, Jack.
Why? Isn't he, like, really depressed?
Yeah, and he lives in London.
Cheers.
He does have a girlfriend.
Wow, low blow.
I'm just saying.
Shots fired.
Not a nice one. She seems a bit naggy, to be honest.
Yes, yeah.
If anything,
sort of.
I would say you're maybe doing better than him.
Thanks.
Then one day, out of nowhere, a mysterious woman just is lying injured in the streets of London. Who is this woman? And will Richard stop to help her? He does, obviously, because then
It would be really short if he didn't.
it would be better. And
Whoa.
in helping her, she basically leads him on a merry old adventure into what is described as the London below. So we have the London above, which is the London you and I know. And then there's this weird, fantastical London below where there's all sorts of weird-looking people.
And where things that you would know about above London are, like, twisted and take on their own form in below London, right? Or
yeah, in just really stupid ways. Like, the Angel Islington is actually an angel. And the Duke of Earl is actually a duke. Just stupid little things like that, really.
You can't see, but I am pulling the most furious face right now.
I can imagine. There was a character I liked. The only issue is I don't really know how to pronounce his name.
Yep, that's fair. Go on, give it your best guess.
Alright, it's, I think, the Marquis de Caraba.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do know who you're talking about, sort of, yeah. I mean, it's probably pronounced differently, but I don't know.
Okay. He's interesting. Just got eyes and a mouth, and the rest is just a void. At least that's how it's drawn. White hair, dresses quite affluently.
Yep, I do remember who you're talking about.
Yeah. He's very interesting. He probably has the most range as well in his story, and there's moments where you're not sure whose side he's on.
Yeah.
And he definitely tends to put himself first. He's a good character. Dor, the lead woman, her name is Dor. You know, Neil Gaiman, one for brilliant imagination, called her Dor. Do you know why he called her Dor?
I'm not talking to you.
Because she, right, in this world, is an opener. And what openers do, if you couldn't guess, they open doors. So we've got Door the Opener, who opens doors. Bravo, Neil Gaiman. Bloody good work right there. She's the one that he finds lying injured. And essentially the story's all about her family being murdered and she wants to avenge it. And the Richard guy just kind of gets swept along with it all, almost by mistake, really. Almost like many other stories that are better. Like The Hobbit, for example. The artwork's fine, to be honest. Have you read the book?
Not the original book, no.
Right, so you've only read the comic like me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious how the descriptions, how they come across, especially after reading it now.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like bizarre looking creatures. They're all quite humanoid. There's like a woman that's entirely blue, and just odd things going on. Yeah, it's just their journey. The only characters that I liked, I'm not sure if it's for the right reasons. There's two villains, really big hench guy and a little weedy guy, and they talk as if they're smarter than they actually are, which I kind of like about them. We have Mr. Croup, who chats a lot, and then Mr. Vandemar, who's just this hench guy, bit of a brute, should we say. They just go around killing people, basically. But,
yep.
I mean, that's great. That was the highlight for me. Honestly, if you were to say, would you recommend this to anyone, I'd say no.
Right. Well, your points, Liam, are not particularly good points, in my opinion.
Right.
Because you say things like, oh, the story's very obvious and the same story as everything else. Guess what? Everything's the same fucking story as everything else. Because everything follows the same rules. The, like, circular hero narrative and stuff like that. Which, surprisingly, this one doesn't fucking follow. Because the hero never discovers that he's, like, the one. Does he? I don't remember.
Well, that didn't make a good point, did it?
Does he discover he is the one?
It's not that he necessarily discovers he's the one. This isn't like, oh, there's one hero to save them all. It's just...
So different to the standard thing.
No, it's if it was different, it might be good. But it's not. It's quite predictable.
But that doesn't make something bad. Being predictable isn't
Right,
a fault.
no, it isn't. If something's enjoyable but predictable, hey, at least it's still enjoyable.
Yeah, but your point was like, oh, it's classic Neil Gaiman. You've read one fucking other Neil Gaiman thing, so you can't say that. You're letting your opinion, which you've fabricated, can I point out, that he thinks he's smarter than he is, you've let that jade your view of his stuff. Because he doesn't do that. He's a really down-to-earth guy. When you see interviews with him and stuff, he's not like that at all.
Right, maybe it's not Neil Gaiman.
He talks to his fans, he's a really good person.
Right, maybe it's not Neil Gaiman who thinks he's better than he is.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Maybe it's all of his fans who put him on a fucking pedestal, and then you read some of his stuff, and you're like, what is the big deal?
I don't think he's a god, but he's good at what he does.
Is he?
Writing.
Is he good at what he does?
Yes.
Is he? Right, if he's good at writing, okay, how is recommending me a graphic novel that's been adapted by someone else from a book that he wrote?
Because I wasn't trying to get you to like Neil Gaiman.
If you were, you would have failed magnificently.
I would have given you American Gods to read if I was trying to convince you to like Neil Gaiman.
As I've said before, it's not necessarily Neil Gaiman I have the issue with.
You did not say that before. You just said that after I made a very big point about your problem.
I said it's not necessarily Neil Gaiman, it's Mike Carey who adapted this. Maybe my issue lies with him. However, I don't think he's necessarily responsible for all of the story beats being pretty predictable. I mean, take this for example, okay? Now this happens towards the end. There's a beast of London living below the streets of London. Imagine that. It's horrible.
Stop saying imagine that. Like that's a thing that's really obvious and should exist in everything.
There's a woman called Hunter. Right. Guess what she does?
That's the fucking point of it, Liam.
Yeah, she's a hunter.
But no, the whole point of Neverwhere is it's taking London that you know and it's twisting it. It's not writing a whole new thing. It would have been a totally different book if they didn't have the Angel of Islington in it, because then it wouldn't have been taking real London and creating a parody world of it where everything is based on what exists in our world, because then you wouldn't feel the connection by being like, oh, I know Angel Islington's a place, so I know that Angel of Islington is what they're talking about when they start saying that stuff. And Elephant and Castle's in it as well, isn't it?
No.
Is it not?
No.
I thought it was. I sort of vaguely remember there being an elephant.
No.
Do you know what it is? I think I remember reading it and being like, I hope there's an elephant in this.
Fuck me. Anyway.
Cut that bit out where I talk about it.
No. So there's a hunter, right? Back to my point.
I will talk through all your points till you agree to cut it out.
Sure. There's a hunter, right? And they're the best hunter in the land, yeah? There's never been a better hunter. They've destroyed loads of things, right? Then they fight the Beast of London, and she's got like a magic spear, and apparently only this magic spear can defeat the Beast of London. But the best hunter in the world gets killed by the Beast of London, and you'll never guess who actually kills it. It's old boring Richard Mayhew.
But the main that's character. Something different, isn't it? Because the whole time you're saying that,
how is that something
I haven't read
different?
This for a while, made it seem like the hunter was going to kill the beast.
Oh my lord!
Because that would be the really obvious thing to do. Would be to make the hunter kill the beast.
The really predictable thing to do would be to make your main character do something better than someone that is supposedly the expert at it, but they get beaten at it.
I think you're jaded towards this, and I don't think I'm going to be able to change your mind. You're definitely not going to be able to change mine because I loved this graphic novel.
I'm not saying you're wrong for loving it.
Oh, I am saying you're wrong for not loving it.
No, there's neither of us is wrong or right.
No, I'm right and you're wrong.
To me, this was a load of bollocks, basically. And also, right, it ends with him. So he's discovered this magical world, yeah. He's even, like, people have pointed out to him that his girlfriend's a dick, right? Yeah. And yet the whole thing is just him wanting to get back to his life of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Fucking
That's not predictable.
It's just stupid, that's what it is. And then
it's
at the end,
though.
At the end, he's given the chance to either stay in this fantastical world or go back to mediocrity. He goes back to it, and then in literally the space of one page, he's like, oh, wait a second. It's fucking boring, isn't it? I'm going to go back to that magical world. So, what have we achieved in these 200 plus pages? Bugger all. I couldn't tell you what I've taken away from this. I think all I've taken away is I'm really not a fan of Neil Gaiman.
Which isn't even true, because, again, you keep pointing out that that's not what you said.
I'm really not a fan of Mike Carey's interpretation of Neil Gaiman. The art's alright. I mean, that's the most positive thing I can say. The art's alright. But, I mean, I don't know why you recommended it to me.
Just to remind listeners, if you want to get in contact with us and explain to Liam why he's a fucking dick, that time it wasn't just me trying to fit it in the podcast, that was real. If you want to tell him and explain, why his point is fucking stupid, you can. And we'll tell you again at the end of the show. What do you rate it out of 5, Liam?
2.5.
That's too high for what you just said.
Is it?
2.5 is the middle. That means you are average about it. But you just went on a huge rant about how it was shit.
Oh, alright. Let me justify, okay? The thing is, yes, it was predictable, right? Yes, I wasn't a huge fan of it. But it didn't, get under my skin to the point where I was really annoyed by it. There was nothing in it. And that's maybe even the point. There was nothing in it that I could care enough about to muster up any feelings beyond apathy and a little bit of resentment that you were making me read all of it.
Right, well, that's not average then, mate.
It is.
Your average shouldn't be mild apathy. Or no, mild resentment. Sorry, I mixed up the one thing.
No, resenting you, not the comic.
Yeah, but...
I was apathetic to the comic.
You can't be resenting me for an average film. If I gave you you didn't like John dies at the end 2.5, and you didn't like John dies at the end.
Here's the thing, right? You know my feelings to Neil Gaiman, and this just enforces them.
Your unfounded opinion, which you based off of the first part of Sandman, which I then told you was not the best part of Sandman.
Yeah, I don't know why you thought this would make me change my mind.
God, you're a douchebag sometimes.
I'm just saying, right, in my humble opinion, Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, as it says on the cover.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Right. but you think it's average. So that means that you would read it again.
No, I would not.
2.5 says to
No.
me I would read it again.
No.
Right, so don't give it 2.5.
Wait, you'd watch a 2.5 movie again, would you?
Yeah, because that's perfectly average.
No,
that's
3
an
is
all-right
perfectly
movie.
average. 2.5 is below average.
3 is not average. 3 is good.
No, it's
Because
not.
3 is above half.
No, but that's not the way it works.
Yes, it is. 0 to 5. 3 is not half. 2.5 is half.
But
So that's average. The average is taking it. 2.5 is average, Liam. Again, listeners, if you want to explain to Liam how a 0 to 5 scale works, please message us. We'll give you the details at the end.
to me, 3 is average, not good. 4 is good.
No, because 5 is excellent. No, because 4 is not good. Because good, there's too many good things. 5 is excellent. 5 is reserved for the best of the best.
Yeah.
So Star Wars to me was a 5.
No,
right?
4. To me.
I'm learning so many things this episode about you that I don't like. You rated it your best film of 2015.
Yeah, I've only seen 15 films of 2015. Well, were released in 2015. It was a
Your
solid
rating system
4.
is
It was a
very
solid
flawed.
4. It was a good movie. A little bit derivative, but a good movie. Fun. It was fun. Solid 4.
Back to Neverwhere.
To
With your
me,
terrible
to
rating.
me, a 5-star thing is practically perfect. Die Hard, Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future. 5 stars. 5 stars, best of the best.
Yeah, but
4.5, but
what,
4.5 is something that's really, it's good. Just 1 or 2 little niggles about it. Lost in
Yeah.
Translation, 4.5 stars. Into the Wild, 4.5 stars. 4, good, solid, knows what it's doing, does it right. 3.5, better than average.
I don't think you need to run down every fucking point.
Evidently, I do. 3, average. 2.5, below average. 2, not the best. 1.5, more bad than good. 1, pretty damn poor. Very little to write home about. 0.5 star, almost unwatchable or unreadable. And then 0 stars is reserved for the worst of the worst, such as a movie like Fantasia, which has audacity to even dare call itself a movie.
Alright, you're going off track here, Liam. So let me just very quickly, because I don't want to drag this section out for another half hour. What I'll say is, it seemed to me in your rating scale that you jump from your 5 and 4.5. It was 5 is perfect, and then you listed your favourite films, which is correct. Yeah, I agree. 5 is perfect. 4.5, you said a couple of bits missing, right?
Yep.
Then it feels to me like what you've done is so that section there is quite compressed. They're very close together. Very it would be quite easy to get a 4.5 to a 5, correct? Because there's a few changes to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then it seems like there's a fucking giant jump to 4, which is good.
Solidly good.
It seems like, but it seems like there's this huge jump because 4.5 was next to perfect. It's like, there's a couple of bits missing, and then 4 is good, solidly good. It shouldn't be. If your scale works like that, it should be 4.5, very close to perfect, 4, very close to perfect, because it's a fucking scale, not an exponential scale, which is what you're doing.
I'm just doing it the way I've always done it.
Yeah, terrible. I think your rating in Jack's rating system sounds like it might have been a 2.
Let me put this into a way you might understand, okay?
Thank you. Lower it to my level.
Yeah. In a Jack rating system, probably give Neverwhere a 1.5, maybe a 2.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
But in my rating
I wish you'd
system-
use my rating system for everything.
My rating system, which makes sense to everyone else, 2.5.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I probably made it sound like I hated it more than I did, because at no point was I hating it, I was just disappointed by it.
It definitely came across like you hated it.
No, I was disappointed.
Like a disapproving father.
Exactly. And Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere was the child that didn't cut the mustard.
If Neil Gaiman ever listens to this, I love you. You're one of my heroes.
Mr. Neil Gaiman, I've yet to see what the big deal is about you. I think you're overrated, but I'm open-minded. Maybe you've done something that I will like. Fingers crossed, eh?
Oh, okay.
So next
what are
week, next week, Jack, come on. What are we doing next week? Let's mix things up again, shall we?
So, yeah, we've done films and we've done comic books / graphic novels.
Yeah.
So, next week, we've decided that we're going to be doing apps.
So what have you got for me then?
I'm giving you the app/game Her Story.
Okay. I've seen it about. I've heard good things, so I'm curious.
I haven't played the app. I've only played it on PC. It was really good on PC.
Okay.
So I hope the app's as good.
Well, fingers crossed.
What are you giving me?
I am giving you the app/game Soda Dungeon.
Oh, I've never heard of it or played it.
I think you'll enjoy it. I've got a hunch.
Yeah, you got a feeling that I might enjoy it.
Thanks for listening. You've been beautiful.
What was that?
So
That's not how we end. Don't confuse me. I struggle to do the outro anyway.
Alright, do you want to do that then?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Nerd on Nerd. If you want to get in contact with us, you can tweet us at nerdonnerd, or you can email us at nerdonnerdpod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Happy New Year.